In this country and in the United Kingdom, whooping cough has not been a killing disease for a very long time.
In 1974, the majority of British parents quit using the DPT shot. In the process of researching this story, we were told over and over again by U.S. officials that the result was a major epidemic and that hundreds of thousands of people suffered and hundreds of people died.
From what you know, the situation in England is that there are more deaths and more hospitalizations now that they are not giving the vaccine.
That's correct.
The death rate in the height of that so-called epidemic, to which a lot of attention has been drawn by your government here, the death rate was the lowest ever. And in Scotland, for example, the hospital admissions continued to fall.
Dr. Stewart is correct. According to official United Kingdom government figures, here is what happened. The British people became convinced that the vaccine was worse than the disease in 1974, and use of the vaccine dropped from about 80% acceptance to about 30% acceptance. There was an epidemic in 1978. It was not hundreds of thousands of cases, though. In fact, at the peak of the epidemic, it was 66,000 cases. 12 people died. In 1980, when vaccine acceptance was running about 40%, 21,200 people got whooping cough. 6 people died. In Great Britain, where the shot was once mandated, parents must now ask for it to get it. It is their choice.
I'm happy you've thought about the whooping cough injection.
I have, but I've decided I don't want it.
And why is that?
Well, I just think that she could be that one in a million that something might happen to. So I just decided to leave it out.
And your other 2 children didn't have it?
They didn't have it, no.
In this country, parents can't say no.
Says maybe she should not have this shot because it seems to me she's just not quite herself. And he checked her all over and said, well, she looks okay to me. And he gave her the shot. And the following morning, when I was feeding her, she went into a grand mal seizure, which, of course, I didn't know what was happening. I thought she was dying in my arms, is what it amounted to.
She has seizures probably 1 every 5 or 10 minutes.
Polly's neurologist, Dr. Jerome Murphy, until recently head of pediatric neurology at Milwaukee Children's Hospital.
She has injured herself frequently from these. A very cute little girl, unfortunately, has to wear a helmet to prevent any more serious head injuries. I call it a post-pertussis encephalopathy. I presently follow 4 children, at least, that I know of, that had a neurologic illness that started shortly after a DPT immunization. All 4 children have delay in their development and have seizures.
Is her condition permanent?
I doubt she'll ever resolve her seizure disorder. I hope that as she grows older, we'll be able to control them better. As far as her delay in learning, I think that's a permanent problem.
The Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control have long contended that children like Scott and Polly may not be DPT victims, that it may be a coincidence they convulsed right after the shot. The government feels their convulsions might have happened anyway. Dr. Murphy disagrees.
This is overwhelming data that there's an association. I think it's average for pediatric neurologists to see such cases. I know it has influenced many pediatric neurologists not to have their children immunized with pertussis.
Serious reactions from the polio vaccine, 1 in 4 to 5 million children, and measles and mumps vaccine, 1 in a million, are almost unknown. Serious reactions from the whooping cough vaccine are common. It could be as low as 1 in every 700 children. Medical knowledge about severe reactions from the whooping cough vaccine goes all the way back to the early 30s. Report after report has been published in medical journals since then. In 1948, 2 American doctors reported on case histories of many children who had been brain damaged or died from DPT vaccines in Boston. The following year, another doctor surveyed pediatricians throughout the country and found still more. Those studies have been forgotten. Between 1955 and 1958, Dr. Justus Strom surveyed over 200,000 children who got shots in 64 hospitals and clinics in Sweden. Then he looked at the previous 10 years of whooping cough disease in Sweden. He found 3 times more brain damage and disorder caused by the vaccine than caused by the disease. He was strongly criticized, so he did another study. The two studies combined show a rate of destructive brain damage or death in 1 out of every 46,000 children who get the DPT shot. The Swedish government has now stopped using the DPT vaccine. It feels the disease is now mild and the vaccine too reactive. So far, there has been no epidemic in Sweden. West German studies determined the rate of serious brain damage from the P part of the DPT shot to be about 1 in every 39,000 children. The West German government stopped giving the shot. A study shows with only 10% of parents requesting that their children be vaccinated with the pertussis whooping cough vaccine that there has been no epidemic and no rise in deaths from the disease in West Germany. Great Britain has done 2 studies on the whooping cough vaccine. The Committee on Safety of Medicines, on which Dr. Gordon Stewart served, determined 1 of every 53,000 children vaccinated was severely brain damaged. The National Childhood Encephalopathy Study in England determined the rate at about 1 in every 100,000 children. However, that study only considered children who had convulsions, and they had to last more than 30 minutes.
When one has convulsions that last longer than a minute or two, one is much more apt to be dealing with some underlying brain disease.
The only part of the study that really endorsed is the one that supports the conclusions that they had already formed.
But they sponsored yours as well.
They sponsored ours, and then when ours came up with different conclusions, they more or less disowned it.
It is the National Childhood Encephalopathy Study and its rate of 1 in 100,000 children seriously damaged that the British government, the U.S. medical community, and the U.S. government recognize. It was American doctors who first alerted the government to reactions back in 1936, but it was not until after British press reports caused people to quit using the vaccine in the United Kingdom that our government decided to take a look. 42 years had gone by between the first warning and the time the U.S. government decided to commission its first study. It was done by Dr. Larry Bariff of the UCLA Medical Center.
Because the Food and Drug Administration was concerned that this sort of public panic might spread to the United States, they wanted to document that the vaccine was in fact safe and not associated with severe consequences.
The UCLA study found more reaction than had ever been seen before. The study estimates that as many as 1 in every 13 children had persistent or high-pitched crying after the shot.
This may be indicative of brain damage in the recipient child.
Also, the study estimates 1 in every 700 children had a convulsion or went into shock.
In most cases, it's a single spell. It does not recur, and the child does very well thereafter. But there are many children in whom there is a persistent neurologic deficit.
Even though it is well known, some of the reactions children had in the UCLA study can cause brain damage, there's been no follow-up to find if any of those children suffered long-term problems. Why? Because after nearly a half a century of waiting for answers, the only study commissioned in this country ran out of money. Neither the FDA nor the doctors involved have plans to pursue the matter. This is the only real study that the government has done on the DPT shot in 40 years. And you're saying you don't have enough money to go back and check on those children who had reactions.
The funds for contractual agreements, there's just no funds within the FDA for that now.
They were only followed for 48 hours. There's some reason to believe that some children develop complications after that. It seems that you have them in your grasp. Wouldn't you like to know what happened to them?
I think so. Sure. It's just not the only thing that's been cut back, unfortunately.
Well, one has to be concerned about studies that are fairly careful studies that show rates substantially more frequent than what has previously been reported. I think, however, one also has to take into account the fact that this is one study.
Do you know of any other studies which are going to be done to hopefully get to the bottom of all this?
I do not know of other studies underway at the present time.
2 children died that were in the UCLA study. They weren't considered as being DPT related.
The deaths that were reported in that study were SIDS, and the association between SIDS and the whooping cough vaccination, when we saw the data, was just no more than occur by chance itself.
Dr. Hinman at CDC is not that sure.
The bottom line is that one cannot be certain that DTP vaccination in some circumstances does not trigger sudden infant death.
But the data that we have to date suggests that there might be an association.
Even when the physician's desk reference, written by manufacturers, lists a possible connection between DPT and SIDS deaths, the man in charge of finding out says
there is no evidence for anything other than a coincidental association.
I was employed at the Bureau of Biologics for several years, and it is my opinion that they very much do not wish to know adverse reactions.
Why?
Well, this will complicate their life considerably.
It is difficult to come up with a definitive answer as to how many children are being severely damaged or are dying from the DPT vaccine. There have been a lot of studies, but no one has ever searched out victims.
However, in the United Kingdom, there is a compensation program. In England, children may receive compensation if they are 80% disabled and can prove to the government that they were damaged by a vaccine. Dr. Stewart says just under 600 DPT victims have collected. He correlates that to 1 in every 25,000 children given the shot. 1 in every 25,000 children in the U.S. would mean 272 children are being severely disabled and retarded every year. Dr. Robbins of the FDA just doesn't believe it.
If these numbers did occur, I would be alarmed. I don't know what we would do about it, but I don't think we're having that many cases.
Is it possible that there could be more reactions in the United Kingdom than there would be in the United States?
It's possible, but not probable.
You know, we start off with healthy infants, and we pop them not once, but 3 or 4 times with a vaccine. The probability of causing damage is the same each time. My greatest fear is that very few of them escape some kind of a neurological damage out of this.
Do you really believe that?
And I really believe it. I mean, if the child isn't frankly rendered a vegetable and yet has a fever, and very large fraction of the children have fever from it, also a large fraction have the screaming syndrome, which is surely an irritation of the central nervous system. You add all of this up, how many infants that are receiving this are in some way damaged by the vaccine, and how can you prove that they haven't been, or that they have been? All of them are vaccinated.